Hey, how does it feel to lose a husband who earns $200,000 a year? Looking at my face, my sister grinned. It was supposed to be a celebration for my childbirth, but she didn't care. She didn't bring any gifts, and confessed to having an affair with my husband without any remorse. Honestly, he is head over heels in love with me, can't you see? You have always been inconsiderate and shabby, and you have no charm as a woman. It's really a pity that he had been married to such a person until now. Do you think you can mess up someone's family and get away with it? As I glared at her, she even seemed to enjoy that. Being a dumped wife must feel really miserable. That's all you can say, isn't it? Why don't you look at yourself in the mirror? You can see the meanness sticking to your face. What kind of person are you? This is my great reversal in life. I can spend as much money as I want. I can pay any amount for child support. After all, Daniel is an elite with an annual income of $200,000. $10,000 or $20,000 is nothing to him. Right, Daniel? As my sister turned to look at my husband who was present, he started trembling. As soon as our eyes met, he suddenly knelt down. I'm sorry. His voice suddenly echoed, and the one who was most taken aback was my sister. Huh? At that moment, I reached into my pocket for something I had hidden. When I attached it to the front of my shirt, my sister's face turned pale instantly. My name is Tiffany. I am a so-called working homemaker, balancing both household and job duties. Daniel and I had been married for 5 years. I wonder whether those 5 years were long or short. I personally felt it was quite a long journey. We had been wanting children since we got married. Both of us were 31 at the time, still a viable age for having children, but creating a warm family with children had always been one of my dreams. A common wish. However, I had difficulty conceiving since we started our married life. We went to the hospital and both of us were tested, but there were no abnormalities. Eventually, you will conceive. The doctor optimistically predicted, but we had to keep trying to conceive for a very long time. After 5 years, when I finally got pregnant, the joy of us was indescribable. Finally, a baby was coming to us. Rubbing my belly, we thanked God over and over. At the time, I was working full-time, but gradually reduced my workload, preparing for maternity leave. I was busy at work and I felt a sense of loss as tasks slipped through my fingers one after another, but what mattered most was the child in my belly. Luckily, our combined household income was substantial, and we had saved enough money. Daniel said, I will work even harder from now on. True to his word, he seemed to be investing 20% more effort into his work. I was actually worried about him overworking. I entered the stable period, and a month before the due date, I took a leave from my job. But then, my father got sick and I decided to take care of him at my parents' house. Initially, Daniel, who didn't like being alone, was not happy about that. But he gave in when I convinced him it would be a month at the longest. I'm going to miss you, Tiffany. While I felt his attitude was somewhat unreliable, it also endeared him to me, and I vowed to fulfill my duties as a pregnant woman for his sake too. When I crossed the threshold of my parents' home after a long time. Hi, Tiffany. Long time no see. My sister Erica was there at our parents' home. I was surprised by her sudden appearance, especially since we hadn't seen each other for nearly a decade. Actually, I didn't even know if my sister was still alive. Our parents felt the same, as she had left home almost like an elopement 10 years ago. Her partner was an unemployed man who used to be a nightclub worker. At that time, Erica seemed to be really into him, investing all the money she had earned herself, and even reaching into our parents' funds, which led to them disowning her. About 10 years since then. Without any contact even once a year, I had no way to tell her that I had gotten married, let alone about my pregnancy. When this Erica suddenly appeared at our parents' home, I was surprised and had a bad feeling. One reason was that we had never been close sisters. Moreover, seeing her more rugged appearance after 10 years, I even felt a sense of disgust. What? Are you pregnant? Such a big belly. I'm almost at full term. More importantly, what have you been doing all this time? You ran away from home like you eloped, and it's been 10 years. You never even contacted us once. Well, I was disowned, right? Dad and Mom yelled at me, never show your face again. I couldn't come back. That's because you tampered with the house money. I know. I said I'd pay it back and reflect on it, so they allowed me to stay at home again. Maybe the youngest daughter is always the dearest, huh? What about the man you were with? Oh, I broke up with him long ago. That penniless guy. After devouring my savings and even going into debt, he started messing around with another woman. Her face as she said this was dangerously glittering. It was not the face of the sister I knew. She had always been badly behaved, but seeing her after a long time, she was completely clad in a negative aura due to her rough life. Intimidated, I couldn't say anything more. Well, it's all in the past. Let's let bygones be bygones and get along as sisters. I'll be living in this house from now on too. In this house? Yeah, that's right, Tiffany. Thus began our life at our parents' house, but honestly, I only felt stress. Of course, the cause was Erica's presence. She had said we should get along, but that promise was never kept. Erica, who pursued her selfishness, lived a life without caring at all about family life. Especially as a pregnant woman, I wished she would be considerate, but she made noise even late at night and hardly got up in the morning. She was nothing but a slothful daughter parasitizing at home, with everything provided for her. Yet, she showed no remorse at all. Her reasoning was summed up in one point. Well, I'm working, unlike you, right? Erica did have a temp job, and she left for work at fixed times during the day. There was also a promise to our parents to repay the money. It seemed that she felt she was contributing financially to the house, which, on the contrary, made her confront me, who was on leave. Pregnant or not, you're just unemployed and crushing life, right? Eating, sleeping, and just wandering around every day. This is necessary for the baby in my belly. This is the most crucial time. Yeah. Pregnant women are so great, huh? Tiffany, you're always so sneaky. With a snort, she glared at my big belly. It seemed she was upset that our parents were paying more attention to me. My worried mother suggested to me one day, maybe you should explain to Erica that you're on leave. She's nagging about you being unemployed. If she knows you work too, maybe her attitude will change a bit. It's okay, Mom. Whatever she thinks of me. It would only complicate things more. I want to focus solely on giving birth. I'm just worried she might do something reckless. I understood what my mother was saying, but I didn't want to wear myself out over my sister anymore. The baby was going to be born very soon. I wanted to be a strong mother at any time. For that, I couldn't afford to be bothered by Erica's antics. One day, a week before my due date, Daniel came to visit me at my parents' home. He seemed uncomfortable in someone else's home and was nervous throughout the visit. However, he was sharply dressed in a suit. I couldn't help but laugh inside at his attempt to look good. Nice to meet you. I'm Erica, her sister. The one who approached my husband with a cooing voice was Erica, all dolled up. She usually didn't wear such heavy makeup when she went to work. Now, she was fully made up and wearing a dress with a low neckline. Seeing him clearly flustered, I quickly stepped in. Erica, isn't it time for you to be at work? Daniel won't be staying long either. What? I finally get to meet my brother-in-law, so why can't we have a nice long chat? Your husband is such a wonderful man, isn't he? He looks great in a suit, and he seems so kind. A big difference from my ex. Don't bring up weird stories here. Heh. And you earn a lot, right? I heard you are a lawyer. I've always admired smart people. Daniel seemed quite pleased with the sparkling gaze directed at him. He blatantly ogled, even staring at my sister's exposed cleavage. I was so appalled that I smacked him on the buttocks hard. I sent him straight home. If he just wanted to see my face, his business here was done. Well then, I'm off to work too. I felt a twinge of anxiety as my sister left the house following my husband. But I couldn't go after her. More than that, I felt suddenly exhausted. I later heard from my mother. Apparently, she had privately warned my sister that it was not right to ridicule her sister as unemployed. After that, it seems she also accidentally let slip about our household income and the details of our jobs. She had spoken quite vaguely, but it was unclear how my sister interpreted that. At least in her eyes, it appeared that Daniel was seen as a man of means. In hindsight, I should have been more cautious at that moment. Then, perhaps no one would have gotten hurt later. A week passed, and I finally went into labor. It was a painful night and day. However, when it was over, I felt unparalleled happiness. Our long-awaited baby. Though only 90 ounces and a bit small, the baby looked more precious than any jewel to me. If there was one concern, it was that my husband didn't make it on time for the delivery. We had discussed and decided together that he would be there on the day of birth. Our child. That's why I wanted him to witness the moment of birth thoroughly. However, he arrived at the hospital an hour after the baby was born. Why were you late? Work got in the way. Just 5 minutes later, Erica showed up, and I sensed something was off. Could these two be? After the enormous task of giving birth, I realized I had yet another issue to resolve. Afterward, I was like a demon in how I handled things. Of course, I kept my resentment well hidden. After the postpartum period, we arranged a celebration at my parents' home. Not only my husband, but also his parents and many relatives were invited to the celebration. And there, quite nonchalantly, was my sister. That day, too, my sister was dressed up excessively. It was unclear who the main character was, and what's worse, she clung tightly to my husband's side and wouldn't leave. I did not miss the meaningful glances they exchanged. I have something to say to everyone. At the peak of the gathering, I stood up and raised my voice. The attendees, faces flushed from the alcohol, stared at me. Although this is a joyful celebration, I have something important to announce. Today, I am divorcing my husband, Daniel. The faces of the relatives all looked as if they couldn't close their mouths in shock. Only my parents, who had been briefed in advance, looked at him with sullen expressions. As for him, he looked utterly clueless about what was being said. I continued with more probing details. It's embarrassing to admit, but my husband repeatedly cheated on me while I was struggling with pregnancy and childbirth. I hired a detective agency, and I have obtained evidence of his infidelity. I will show everyone photos later, including him entering a short-stay hotel with another woman and kissing her on the street at night. And believe it or not, the woman he cheated with is my own sister. Erica. With her name called out, all eyes turned to Erica. My sister, who was clinging close to my husband, might as well have admitted her guilt just by that action alone. In fact, she laughed unabashedly. Tiffany, you really do bold things. Exposing your own shame in front of the relatives. Telling everyone that you were cheated on right after giving birth, that's a shame that will last generations. I wanted to make you realize all the betrayals you've committed. Betrayal sounds so harsh. I just fell in love with Daniel. Who can complain about a loving act? How can you even say that? You stole my husband, didn't you? And that while I was giving birth. I will never forget you two visiting the maternity ward together. Absolutely right. I admit it because I feel sorry for you. Yes, while you were giving birth, we were making love in a nearby hotel. Sorry, Tiffany. While you were having a baby, we were making one. Erica. What kind of person are you? What? I'm just admitting what you wanted to hear. You got dumped by a brilliant husband earning $200,000 a year. She laughed triumphantly and took a big swig of her beer. The surrounding relatives were speechless in disbelief. Undisturbed by the atmosphere, she continued. Honestly, I can't stand that a plain Jane like you got a high-earning husband. You are just a gloomy old woman. In contrast, I'm beautiful and still young. It's natural for Daniel to be drawn to me. He even said in bed that he wasn't confident about life with his wife. I don't want to hear about your affairs. Is that sour grapes? You're in for a tough time. You'll have to raise a baby as a single mother now. Really, poor child. To lose a father because of the mother's selfishness. Be prepared, Erica. I intend to claim substantial child support from you and him. I will show no mercy. Under the law, you both will see hell. Please, do sue for child support or whatever. I will have a husband making $200,000 a year. $10,000? $20,000? If you beg on the ground asking for money, maybe I'll throw in a little extra. Right, Daniel? Called in a cooing voice, he stood by her side, his face pale. His hands were trembling. Erica looked puzzled and called, Daniel? But my husband showed no reaction. As soon as our eyes met, he instantly knelt down and cried out, I'm sorry. To everyone's surprise, it was Erica who was taken aback the most. What's the matter, Daniel? Why are you suddenly kneeling down? This is all I can do. I have nothing but apologies. Come on, get a grip. Didn't you say you'd handle it if things got legal? I'm a lawyer. I'll face any lawsuit. You told me to leave everything to you. That was all a lie. Just nonsense, I spouted off. It was supposed to be just a fling. All just nonsense? At that moment, as Erica froze, I decided to reveal my trump card. I took a badge out of my jacket pocket. I pinned the badge to the front of my shirt for everyone to see. The badge was engraved with symbols of equality by a set of scales. What is that? Even Erica seemed to understand what the badge represented at this point. Yes, this is a badge allowed only for lawyers. What? Why? Big sister, you're supposed to be unemployed. I don't know how you came to misunderstand me as unemployed, but as you can see, I am a lawyer currently on leave. Once childcare settles down, I certainly plan to return to work. So, the $200,000 income is. That was my income before I took leave. What did he tell you? That he was the lawyer and the high earner? That was just nonsense to appeal to you. Daniel is a paralegal, in other words, an office worker. Daniel and I met at our workplace. Even then, there was a buzz about our income disparity. Marriage, but I always tried to refrain from judging a partner based on income or status. Please, Tiffany. Forgive me. It was just a moment of weakness. After you went to your parents' house, I felt lonely and just. Of all people, you chose my sister as your affair partner. Being flattered as a lawyer must have felt good, huh? Since you had your fun, it's only right that you face the consequences. I will divorce you and make sure to get a substantial amount of child support. You know I specialize in divorce cases, don't you? So that's how it is, Erica. Feel free to marry him or keep him as your gigolo if you like. I'm no longer interested. Of course, after you've paid me the money. Tiffany, no kidding. I'm your only sister, right? I don't want this lying man either. Please, not the child support. I'm still burdened with debts from my previous boyfriend. The lawsuit has already been filed in court. Prepare yourself. That was all I had to say. I concluded and left the room. Afterwards, I had no interest in how the relatives dealt with my husband and my sister. Some time passed. I officially completed my divorce from my husband. He dragged his feet until the end, but when I hinted at raising the child support, he eventually signed the divorce papers crying. He well knew how skilled a lawyer I was when it actually went to court. Burdened with a hefty child support, Daniel is apparently struggling a lot. Of course, he was fired from the law firm. A man who cheats during his wife's childbirth would naturally be dismissed from any law firm. I hope he reflects and lives more honestly in the future. As for my sister Erica, she too was kicked out of the house and is now wandering homeless. She had already broken up with Daniel. I had learned about it from the multiple calls to my smartphone from my sister. Erica claims she was deceived and is a victim. Feeling sorry for her, I referred her to a law firm. If her claims are valid, surely a competent lawyer will lend a hand. Though I doubted she could afford the legal fees. I have returned to work and am handling my duties just as vigorously as before. At home, I care for my beloved daughter. With my parents helping out, my life is going smoothly. I am discussing with my parents about going to a fancy restaurant for my daughter's first birthday. With the child support from Daniel and Erica, we can afford to splurge. I am thoroughly enjoying my daughter's growth. I'm taking a day off from work today. Pa, didn't you also take a day off yesterday? Can't be helped. I'm not feeling well. When this started, I don't know. It's just, I guess, a lack of motivation. Sometimes, he looks like he's lost his soul. Well, I'm going anyway. Ah. See ya, then. When I got home, my husband was nowhere to be seen. He returned home an hour later. Where have you been? Just out walking. You're lying about feeling sick, aren't you? Why would I do that? He denied it loudly, incredibly loudly. You're being too loud. It's because you say things like that. He was clearly irritated, continuing to knock over the trash can and kick the sofa, showing his emotional instability. At that time, I thought he was irritated by what I said, but that wasn't the case. One day, after work, there was overtime, and as I took a shortcut through the downtown area, I spotted my husband coming out of a casino. What are you doing here? Pa? Why are you here? This way was a shortcut for me. So? What were you doing? You can see, can't you? We went home together, but my husband remained irritable. That didn't change when we got home. He started lashing out again. Then it clicked. The cause of his irritation the other day was this. What? No, it's nothing. It was a while later. He came back from work with an unusually bright face. You seem pretty happy? Sort of. Did something good happen? Actually, I quit my job. What? I should have done this sooner. He quit his job without consulting me, which even I couldn't endure. How could you do something so selfish? Come on, it's fine. Now I can be the homemaker and handle the housework. Ever since we got married, I wondered how he could be so optimistic. If one could live like him, life would surely be fun. A month after he became unemployed, he had an accident. Though he was safe, it caused a hospital stay. Sorry. It's enough that you're alive. But inside, I thought perhaps it was divine punishment. When I visited him in the hospital. You are much better than her. Thank you. You're wonderful, too. I peeked through the door and saw my husband enjoying a conversation with his female doctor. But it's really good it's a private room. Otherwise, we couldn't have met like this. It was good of me to tell your wife, wasn't it? I thought, I see, that's how it is. As I watched, they embraced each other intensely. I felt nauseous and closed the door. My steps were heavy. I headed to the lobby and sat on a sofa. Who did he think was paying the hospital bills? I took a deep breath and started to take action immediately. I thought, now I have to investigate everything. And then, half a year later, that day finally came. Why the formality? This. He pulled out a crumpled piece of paper from his pocket. When he unfolded it, it was a divorce petition. A divorce petition? I deliberately tilted my head. Well, I found someone better than you. Who is it? The doctor, you know her, right? My doctor. He said this with a slight look of triumph. I thought, I know that. This means I'm set for life. After all, she's a doctor. You're nothing compared to her, like the moon and a mudfish. My husband bursts out laughing loudly. He's in a good mood now, but that will soon end. True, that doctor is young and beautiful. Exactly. She's not ugly like you. It's fine to divorce, but do you really understand that woman? What? What are you talking about? She said she's marrying me. We're in love. When was the last time I heard such words? Maybe I've never been told that before. Really? What if it's a lie? What do you want to say? Just say it clearly. It seems that my husband, who was relaxed until now, is getting irritated. About that woman. I told my husband the truth. I had spent quite some time investigating since. I found out he was having an affair with his female doctor. Of course, my husband denied it. That's impossible. Don't make up things that aren't true. I believe it or not, it's up to you, but you'll regret it for sure. That will be you. Well, we'll see who's right eventually. For now, I'll take this divorce petition. Just get out. You don't have to tell me. I left the hospital room after being confronted with the divorce. Now the real challenge begins. There's a lot to do. Canceling the contract for the house we were renting. Reporting to the hospital where that woman works, and more. I thought, what shall I start with? A dramatic future awaits them. My husband may not believe it yet, but it's only a matter of time. I can't wait to see him fall further. I am Jenny, now living a life free from any constraints. I had a husband 3 years older than me, Steve. Our meeting started with a wallet. I dropped my wallet while out, and Steve picked it up. Thank you. Can I offer you something in return? No need. I just did what anyone would do. Then, at least let me buy you coffee. To an onlooker, it might have seemed like I was desperately hitting on him. But Steve, without a look of displeasure, said it was fine. We went to a nearby cafe for coffee. Talking to him, I learned that Steve worked as a salesperson at a company nearby. Actually, my office is nearby too. Is that so? Maybe we'll run into each other again. We chatted about this and that for about 30 minutes and then parted ways. Then, goodbye. Thank you for today. Although we both worked nearby, I thought it wouldn't be easy to meet again. However, we soon met again. I overslept that day and was heading to work later than usual. I barely made it into the elevator as the doors were about to close. Sorry. Oh? You're the one from before. Puh. When I turned around, there was Steve, whom I had just met the other day. Why are you here? My company is on the 10th floor of this building. I'm on the 5th floor. What a coincidence. As we talked, we quickly reached the 5th floor. Well then, just before the doors closed, he looked a bit reluctant to leave. And then, at the end of the workday, it had been a while since I finished work early, and I was excited to head home. As I was passing through the lobby, someone called out to me. Turning around, there was Steve. Ah, good. You're just leaving. Have you been waiting all this time? Yes. I wasn't sure when you'd finish, so it was kind of a gamble. So, what's up? I asked him deliberately. If you're free, how about dinner? I'd love to. Definitely. And so, the two of us left the building together. Honestly, I thought Steve was a cool and smart person. It might have been a bit presumptuous, but I had hoped to date someone like him. We entered a restaurant recommended by Steve. This is a really nice atmosphere. This place is quite a hidden gem. Today's on me, so order whatever you like. But I invited you, so it's on me. Thank you. Indeed, the restaurant is cozy, and there are only counter seats. Knowing such a place somehow makes him seem cool. I hadn't realized it, but maybe I'm quite simple. We had a fun time and exchanged contact information before parting ways. That night, I had trouble falling asleep. This became the start of us frequently contacting each other. And not just after work, but also going out on dates on weekends. And half a year later, I want you to date me with marriage in mind. Yes. Of course. Great. I'm looking forward to our future. I think our relationship was going smoothly. However, the longer we dated, the more I started to see things I hadn't noticed before. It was when he first came to my apartment. You're staying over tonight, right? Yeah, that's the plan. We both changed out of our suits since we were wearing them. But Steve left his suit lying around on the sofa. If you leave your suit like that, it will get wrinkled. Ah. It's always like this, so it should be fine. No, that's not okay. I hung up his suit instead. He seemed so put together when we met outside, but at home, he was sloppy. I thought, is this what they call a scap? At first, even that seemed endearing to me. But Steve's sloppiness knew no bounds. The first time I went to Steve's house, I was speechless. As I stepped into the entrance, a strange smell hit my nose. Sorry, it's a bit messy. A bit? I ended up cleaning up his room, which was littered with trash and clothes. I had arrived around noon, but I didn't finish cleaning until after 8 p.m. Finally, done. Wow, it's like a different room. He said this, laughing and clapping his hands. Sigh. Make sure you do it yourself next time. Sure. I was so tired from cleaning that I decided to go home that day. See you then. Yeah. Despite being pushed around, I still had fun times with Steve. And a year had passed since we started dating. It was during the usual date, while we were having dinner. Let's get married. Honestly, his sloppiness was a concern, but I thought it would change after we got married. Please take care of me. After greeting each other's parents, we became husband and wife. We rented a new home to live in. I was excited about our married life, but I never imagined it would end just a few months later. Living together, Steve's sloppiness improved somewhat. Perhaps because he disliked being scolded by me. I started to notice a change in Steve 2 months later. It was after a particular conversation. Listen. I've been promoted next month. Promotion. That's amazing. I've worked hard for it, and it finally paid off, I guess. Really, a promotion, huh? Something wrong? No, I'm just really happy for you. And then Steve's reckless behavior began. Sorry, can you say that again? I said, I'm thinking about changing jobs. I get that, but what did you say after that? The part about quitting my job? Yes, that part. Well, you know what they say, strike while the iron is hot. So I thought I'd do it sooner rather than later. Do you have another job lined up? No, not yet. You're sure that's okay? It's fine. Trust me. But that wasn't all. I never skimped on household chores, even while working. But he started to complain about them. With my promotion to manager, my overtime increased, which he seemed to dislike. Finally home, huh? What? What do you mean what? I'm starving. I told you I'd be late today. Besides, you're an adult. You can prepare your own meal. That's not the point. Housework is your job, Jenny. He seems to think of me as some sort of maid, his demands escalating. Even if I rush to prepare a meal, if it's not to his liking, he won't touch it and sometimes demands it be made again. But I'm not just going to comply with that. Fish again? Give me some meat once in a while. If you want meat, why don't you find a job quickly and buy it yourself? Just be quiet and follow instructions. I find a job first. What? Neither of us would give in. I decided to give up on discussing things with Steve that day and wait for a calmer moment to try again another time. A week later, Steve comes home with a smile. This should be good, right? Huh? This is my new company's ID badge. You should be satisfied now. Yeah. Honestly, I thought he might remain unemployed indefinitely. For now, I decided to celebrate with him. Impressive. What kind of company is it? Well, it's sales, same as before. Now hurry up and make dinner. I can finally eat some meat. I was relieved that he found a job again. Once he had a job, he stopped complaining as he did before. The way he responded when I asked about his job was a bit concerning. But he seemed motivated, so I decided it was best not to say anything unnecessary. Damn it, why isn't it working out? What's wrong? What's with that look? Huh? What's with that condescending look? I'm not looking down on you. I'm just worried. However, Steve wouldn't listen to me. Instead, he became defiant. You must think I'm trash compared to you, a manager. That's not true at all. Eventually, after such exchanges, Steve quit his job again the next day. He started to seclude himself in the room he used as a study. Despite harsh words, I thought it would only cause complaints. So I brought him his favorite coffee instead. What the hell is this? What do you mean? It's your favorite coffee. Then he knocked the coffee from my hand. My favorite mug fell to the floor and shattered. Why would you do that? So, making fun of me is fun for you? I'm not making fun of you. No, you are mocking me. I no longer knew what the right thing to do was. Then, I've had enough. What's with that attitude? Are you abandoning me? It's not like that. I cleaned up the broken cup and left the study. I thought, why did it have to turn out like this? Perhaps the only time I was happy was just after we got married. Now, it feels like a distant memory. I've started to wonder where I went wrong. Steve also started to leave without telling me. Not appearing to look for a job, but returning late at night, often more than 10 times a month. You've been drinking again, haven't you? What I do is none of your business. Where do you even get the money from? You don't need to worry about me. Later, I found out that Steve had been borrowing money without telling me. The amount was more than he could ever repay while unemployed. Eventually, I had to cover the repayment by taking over. Thinking such incidents might happen again, I decided to move. Why are we moving? Because you racked up debt. We can't afford to waste money anymore." Steve had nothing to say after that. The move was quickly arranged, and we relocated to a more suburban area. I was wrong before. What's gotten into you all of a sudden? I've been thinking about how much I've troubled you. From now on, I'll live seriously. I'll find a job right away. Can I trust your words this time? Of course. I decided to trust Steve one last time. It seemed to work because he quickly found a job. Originally, Steve had a strong interest in his career, and his knowledge was recognized, leading to a job at a company that publishes gourmet magazines. From now on, I'll do my best, so watch me. It felt like the happiest smile I'd seen from him since we got married. Thus, we embarked on our second marriage life. However, I had forgotten something important. People don't change that easily. I'm taking a day off from work today. Huh? Didn't you take a day off yesterday too? Can't be helped. I'm not feeling well. I don't know when this started. It's just, I guess, a lack of motivation. Sometimes, he looks like he's lost his soul. Well, I'm going anyway. Ah. See ya, then. When I got home, my husband was nowhere to be seen. He returned home an hour later. Where have you been? Just out walking. You're lying about feeling sick, aren't you? Why would I do that? He denied it loudly, incredibly loudly. You're being too loud. It's because you say things like that. He was clearly irritated, continuing to knock over the trash can and kick the sofa, showing his emotional instability. At that time, I thought he was irritated by what I said, but that wasn't the case. One day, after work, there was overtime, and as I took a shortcut through the downtown area, I spotted my husband coming out of a casino. What are you doing here? Huh? Why are you here? This way was a shortcut for me. So? What were you doing? You can see, can't you? We went home together, but my husband remained irritable. That didn't change when we got home. He started lashing out again. Then it clicked. The cause of his irritation the other day was this. What? No, it's nothing. It was a while later. He came back from work with an unusually bright face. You seem pretty happy? Sort of. Did something good happen? Actually, I quit my job. What? I should have done this sooner. He quit his job without consulting me, which even I couldn't endure. How could you do something so selfish? Come on, it's fine. Now I can be the homemaker and handle the housework. Ever since we got married, I wondered how he could be so optimistic. If one could live like him, life would surely be fun. A month after he became unemployed, he had an accident. Though he was safe, it caused a hospital stay. Sorry. It's enough that you're alive. But inside, I thought perhaps it was divine punishment. Yet at the same time, I also felt relieved. No matter how exasperated I was with Steve, he was still my only husband. I started visiting him in the hospital once a week. Here's the magazine you asked for. Thanks, as always. Well, that's the least I can do. Huh? What's wrong? No, I just smelled something sweet. Really? As I searched for the source of the smell, it seemed to come from around Steve's collar. What's this smell? Maybe it's the detergent? No, this is. Just then, Dr. Becky, his attending physician, entered. You're here again today? Yes. He really is loved, isn't he? Well, yeah. Steve looked somewhat embarrassed. I'm single, so having a husband like Steve would surely be happiness. Yes. I felt uncomfortable and decided to leave the hospital room, even though there was no need for it. I'm going to head home now. I see. Take care. Yeah. And it was when I passed Dr. Becky. I thought, huh? That smell. I stopped in my tracks. Something wrong? No, it's nothing. See you. I thanked to Dr. Becky and left the hospital room. I thought, that smell must be perfume, right? No, but that can't be. I had my doubts, but I decided it was useless to think about it now and headed home. Maybe I was just afraid to face reality at that time. When I visited Steve's hospital room later, "You are much better than her." "Thank you." "You're wonderful, too." I peeked through the door and saw my husband enjoying a conversation with his female doctor. But it's really good it's a private room. Otherwise, we couldn't have met like this. It was good of me to tell your wife, wasn't it? I thought, I see, that's how it is. As I watched, they embraced each other intensely. I felt nauseous and closed the door. My steps were heavy. I headed to the lobby and sat on a sofa. Who did he think was paying the hospital bills? I took a deep breath and started to take action immediately. I thought, now I have to investigate everything. I decided to start by looking into that female doctor. Within a week, her disgraceful true nature began to show. It turned out she was not only cheating with Steve. There were others. And all of them were patients at the hospital. I thought, what kind of woman is she? I resolved to thoroughly investigate. And then, 6 months later, that day finally arrived. As usual, I went to visit. Why the formality? This. He pulled out a crumpled piece of paper from his pocket. When he unfolded it, it was a divorce petition. A divorce petition? I deliberately tilted my head. Well, I found someone better than you. Who is it? The doctor, you know her, right? My doctor. He said this with a slight look of triumph. I thought, I know that. This means I'm set for life. After all, she's a doctor. You're nothing compared to her, like the moon and a mudfish. My husband bursts out laughing loudly. He's in a good mood now, but that will soon end. True, that doctor is young and beautiful. Exactly. She's not ugly like you. It's fine to divorce, but do you really understand that woman? What? What are you talking about? She said she's marrying me. We're in love. When was the last time I heard such words? Maybe I've never been told that before. Really? What if it's a lie? What do you want to say? Just say it clearly. It seems that my husband, who was relaxed until now, is getting irritated. By the way, about that woman, she's not just with you. I told Steve the truth. I had spent quite some time investigating since I found out he was having an affair with his attending physician, Becky. Of course, Steve denied it. That's impossible. Don't make up things that aren't true. Believe it or not, it's up to you, but you'll definitely regret it. That will be you. Well, we'll see who's right eventually. For now, I'll take this divorce petition. Just get out. You don't have to tell me. I left the hospital room after being confronted with the divorce. Then, just as I did, I ran into Becky. Are you here to visit today? Yes. But he just handed me a divorce petition. Oh? Why is that? I thought, pretending to be surprised, huh? Of course, it was to marry you. What? I've investigated everything about you. I know about all the men you've been involved with. I have all the evidence right here. I showed her the envelope I was holding. Then Becky, perhaps panicking, tried to grab the envelope. Stay away. You tramp. It's disgusting. I'll make sure the hospital knows about this, so you just wait, trembling. Becky sat down on the spot. What happens to her is of no concern to me now. And now the real work begins. There's so much to do. I need to cancel the lease on that house I have a contract for. And report that woman to the hospital where she works. I thought, what should I do first, I wonder? The future awaiting Steve and them will be grim. Steve may not believe it yet, but it's only a matter of time. I can't wait to watch my husband's downfall. First, I told the hospital about Becky having relationships with the patients. Of course, they were shocked, but I handed over the evidence along with my statement. I made sure to tell them to pass it up to the head of the hospital. I also immediately applied to cancel the house lease. After all, I was the one who had signed for that apartment. I thought, now, what should I do with all this unwanted baggage? I had everything sellable from Steve's belongings picked up. Items that couldn't be sold, I threw out as trash. Looking around the clean house, I felt satisfied. Then, I made a phone call. Hello? Mom, I'm coming home now. Coming home? That's rather sudden, isn't it? Well, a lot has happened. I'll tell you all about it when I get there. Is that so? Well, I'll be waiting. Thus, I headed to my parents' house. I told them everything and decided to stay for a while. 3 days later. Hey. Why aren't you coming to the hospital? What? After serving me with divorce papers, you ask that? What about that woman? How is she doing? Becky? I haven't seen her today. Maybe she's already been fired? What? Like I told you before, she was involved with other men besides you. I've reported her to the hospital, so she must be having a hard time now. You. Well, that's how it is. I've also canceled the lease on that apartment. And I'm not paying your medical bills anymore. There really was a lot to do. You went that far? Of course. This is revenge for you betraying me. Good luck living on, Mr. Unemployed. After hanging up the phone and deleting his contact information, I went to a lawyer's office to process the divorce. Assuming that Steve wouldn't easily agree to a divorce, I proposed we divorce without seeking compensation. And he agreed to that. After divorcing me, Steve hoped to be with Becky, but they broke up. Faced with no other choice, he showed up at my parents' house while I was taking it easy. What are you doing here? Just wanted to talk a bit. Talk, huh? Well, I'm not interested. Just for a little bit. I had an idea of what he wanted to talk about. Fine, you have 5 minutes. I thought, might as well indulge him this one last time since we won't be seeing each other again. And so, Steve began to speak. But what he talked about, why he had an affair, how much he regretted his actions, were things I no longer cared about. Are you getting to the point yet? Huh? You didn't come all this way just to say something trivial, did you? Trivial things. Steve seemed hesitant to continue. Shall I say it instead? No. Can we get back together? After we divorced? Yeah. I've realized how important you are to me. Let's start over. I've changed. I sighed. If you've changed, so have I. From now on, I'm cutting ties with the past and starting a new life. Which means I'd rather die than get back with you. Got it? Now turn around and go back the way you came. As I was about to close the door, Steve grabbed my arm. Hey, let go. Please. You're all I have. But I don't need you. Then, my parents came from the back of the house. What's going on here? Are you okay? I'm fine. Could you call the police, please? Ah. Got it. The police are coming now. Are you sure you want to be here? Damn it. Steve ran off as if escaping. What was that all about? Who knows? But I doubt he'll come here again. I hope not. Besides, I can't stay here forever. I see. My father looked a bit sad. But this wasn't the end. Steve's reputation spread far and wide, eventually leaving him nowhere to go. He tried to rely on his in-laws, but I had already made a move before him. That was just about a week ago. Is that really true? Yes, everything I've told you is true. I'm sorry for the chaos and the late update. It's not your fault. What has he done? If there's anything we can do, just tell us. Well, actually. Thus, I made sure that they would not assist Steve if he tried to contact them. With no money or anything, Steve apparently started working. He couldn't find a job at a reputable company and is making do with a cashier job at a supermarket. I thought, well, that suits Steve just fine. As for Becky, she was indeed fired from the hospital. Of course, she also had her medical license revoked. And it didn't end there. Steve, like the others involved in affairs, most of whom were married, is being sued for damages by their spouses. Of course, I am too. Well, it might be easier for her since she was a doctor. I thought, I guess I'm finally free now. After leaving my parents' home, I started living alone. From now on, I plan to live freely just for myself. I submitted our marriage registration at the city hall with my husband, believing that a happy married life awaited us. However, on our way back from the city hall, my husband knelt down and asked for a divorce. What? Wait a minute, I don't understand what you mean. Actually, I've fallen in love with someone else. I want to marry her. When I asked who the other person was, he said it was my sister. Sorry, it seems he prefers me over my plain sister. And just like that, my sister stole my husband. At first, I resented her, but I knew a secret about my husband. I planned to tell my sister about it when they returned from their honeymoon, aiming for a time when they were at their happiest. My name is Kitty Johnson. I'm a 32-year-old librarian currently working at a library. It has become a habit for me to drink at my regular spot on Friday nights after work. At 32, I'm still single and living with my parents. As my friends got married one after another, I began to feel increasingly anxious. But unable to change the situation, I grew sick of just getting older. One night, I drank more than usual. A man seated next to me struck up a conversation. You really know how to drink. May I join you? The man looked about as old as my father. I wished he was closer to my age, but since I was lonely drinking alone, I agreed. Sure, it was boring drinking alone anyway. I ended up sharing with this man all the grievances about work and my rush to get married that I couldn't tell anyone else. It sounds tough for women. He listened without judgment, nodding along. Perhaps because I was more talkative than usual due to the alcohol, but somehow I found him easy to talk to. After getting all my complaints off my chest, I suddenly came to my senses and apologized. I'm sorry for rambling so much to someone I just met. No worries at all. I like listening to people, so don't mind me. He smiled kindly, showing concern for me. But still, to carry so much stress, it looks like you don't have many people to talk to. If you'd like, shall we drink together again? I'll listen to your complaints. That's too kind. Really, next time I'll listen to your complaints if you have any. I'd be happy to join you again. That's how we ended up exchanging contact information and parted ways for the day. When I asked for his contact, I learned his name was Tony. take care not to have a hangover. Yes, thank you. Although I usually felt lonely on my way home, that day was different. Being able to talk to someone helped me sort out my feelings, and I walked home with a lighter step. When I arrived home, the house was dark, as if everyone was asleep. I walked quietly down the hallway, trying not to wake my family, when I met my sister Mandy in front of the bathroom. "Oh, big sis, you're just getting home. You're quite late today." Yes, I ended up drinking with someone I didn't know." My sister's eyes sparkled with curiosity as I mentioned this. "What? Tell me more. Did you finally meet a nice guy?" "No, not really. The man was about the same age as Dad." Upon hearing the specifics, Mandy quickly lost interest. That's almost like entertaining a boss then." Sensing there was no interesting story to delve into, she went back to her room. While I told Mandy that he couldn't be a boyfriend, I started to realize that I was curious about him. A week passed without any contact from Tony, and then one Saturday morning I received an email from him. "If you're going out for drinks today, please let me join you." It read. "Let's definitely meet up," I replied, and we decided to drink at the same place as before. That evening, after finishing work, I headed to the bar, and Tony was already there. "Sorry for being late." No problem. I've just sat down myself." Again, like last week, he listened to my troubles, and I felt much better. But realizing I had been talking too much, I remembered my promise from last week. "Last week I promised to listen to you too, Tony. Don't hesitate. If you have any complaints, feel free to share them." Initially, he said he had nothing particular to talk about and preferred to listen. But there is a limit to how much one person can talk, so I encouraged him to share something. "Well, I have a female subordinate, and it's hard to understand what young women these days are thinking." Tony shared a concern with me that I felt I could help with, even if just a little, and I listened attentively. In the flow of our conversation, I became curious about his age and profession, so I asked him. After some thought, he reluctantly answered, "Well, I do a bit of management, and I'm turning 58 this year. Probably around the same age as your parents, right?" I was surprised. My parents were a year younger than him. I worried if I had been disrespectful or rude in my drunken state, not knowing his age. "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to rant and be disrespectful to someone so much older. And I didn't know you were a president. That must have been really troubling for you." "No, not at all. I was happy you spoke to me so freely, as if we were friends despite the age difference. And I dislike revealing my status because it makes people act reserved like now." Let's continue talking without worrying about that. Tony initially hesitated when I first asked about his job because he didn't want my attitude towards him to change after knowing. I decided that if Tony preferred not to talk about work, I would respect his wishes. After that, we became friends beyond the barrier of age, with me often doing most of the talking while Tony listened kindly with a smile. One day, after about a year of this drinking buddy relationship, Tony said he had something he wanted to talk about. It was rare for him to talk about himself, so I was intrigued. "Absolutely. Anything is fine. I'll listen if I can help." "Actually, I met someone I'm interested in." Seeing him blush as he spoke, I felt a pang of sadness. "Oh, she's very kind to me, polite, and a wonderful person." Tony praised her attributes to me. It started to become painful to listen. But then he said something that made me burst into tears of surprise. She's right here in front of me now. At that moment, my hands trembled a bit from joy as I asked him if he was serious. I expressed my genuine feelings and we decided to start dating. There's quite an age gap, like that between a parent and child. Is that okay? Tony was concerned about the age difference. Of course, age doesn't matter when it comes to love. I told him it didn't bother me, and he seemed relieved. From then on, instead of suggesting we go for drinks, he would ask me out on dates. It felt awkward at first, but now I feel we've gotten used to being a couple. Half a year into our relationship, Tony proposed. Though our dating period was short, we had known each other for quite some time. Knowing his character well, I gladly accepted. I had no objections to marrying him, but I wanted to submit our marriage registration on a specific date. So I'd like to submit our marriage registration on March 10th, 2 weeks from now. March 10th is also the anniversary of the day we met. Is it okay if we remain engaged until then? Of course, I'm not worried about the specifics. He agreed to my wishes. He also said he wanted to meet my parents. The parents might be worried about me being so much older. I want to explain my feelings to them until they understand. Right. I want my parents to be convinced too. We agreed to discuss the schedule with my parents that night and then went our separate ways. I was nervous about how to explain it to my parents as I headed home. When I arrived home, my parents were already in their bedroom, so I couldn't talk to them. I decided to discuss it the next morning but was stopped by Mandy coming down to take a bath. Just got home? Uh, yeah. I hadn't told my parents yet about the proposal or that he would be coming to greet them, so I wanted to keep it hidden from Mandy for now. But Mandy was perceptive. Your face is all red. What's up? Did something happen with your boyfriend that has you so excited? I tried not to show it, but she guessed right, and my shoulders twitched. Seeing that, Mandy began to smirk. Huh, haven't you told Mom and Dad yet? From my expression, she guessed the truth one after another. Embarrassed, I tried to change the subject. Enough already. Go take your bath. I need to take one too. Hey, let me meet your boyfriend. She seemed amused and asked to meet him. I didn't want to introduce him just for her amusement and gently refused. Why? He's quiet and complete opposite of you, Mandy. You might not enjoy it. Despite my words, Mandy persisted in wanting to meet him. But I thought it wasn't right to introduce him to her before my parents, so I firmly refused. Realizing my resolve, she didn't push further. The next day, I told my parents about him and discussed a time for him to greet them. They were very pleased and actively suggested available dates. Even after mentioning the age difference, they said they didn't mind if I was fine with it. I was truly grateful to have such understanding parents. However, Mandy, who had eavesdropped, exclaimed loudly, "What? Your boyfriend is 58 years old? Is he that guy you met at the bar you mentioned before?" "That's not a boyfriend, that's a dad." "It's none of your business, Mandy. Leave it alone." Saying this, I had her leave the living room. Then my mother asked when our next date was. "It's this Friday night. We always promise to go out for drinks on Fridays." As we talked, I noticed a shadow move behind the frosted glass of the living room door. Mandy was probably eavesdropping again. I quickly checked the hallway, but she had already run off. Then, on the promised Friday, I headed straight to the bar after work. As I approached Tony, waving at him, he looked puzzled. Who is that woman? What? Oh, I followed you. Mandy had been waiting outside my office and followed me as I left. Go home right now. Aw, but I came all this way. Watching Mandy throw a tantrum, Tony, unfazed, smiled and said, Now, Katie, calm down. Since she's come all this way, why don't we all have a drink together? As per my fiancé's request, I couldn't just dismiss her. Tony must have felt compelled to agree even if he didn't want to. Yay, thank you. Tony, I'm sorry about my sister. I'll scold her when we get home. I apologized several times, but Tony said it was okay and even made room for Mandy at the table. Then Mandy began to ask him all the questions I had hesitated to ask because I thought they might be rude. Tony, you're quite reserved, aren't you? Were your parents like that too? Yes, my parents were like that too. They have both passed away now, but it was a very strict household. I didn't know that Tony's parents had died. It was a bit of a shock to find out from Mandy and not from him directly. As I was reflecting on how I always talked and never really knew much about Tony, Mandy continued to uncover more. Do you have any siblings? I have one brother, but he moved overseas and we haven't been in touch for many years. All this was new to me. Mandy even managed to ask something I had long wondered about. By the way, what do you do for a living? I manage a business. Wow, are you a CEO? She was more eager in her questioning than I had been. Surprisingly, Tony, who had been reluctant to discuss his profession, answered her directly. I couldn't hide my astonishment. Perhaps because she's the sister of his fiancée, he answered honestly, fearing that keeping secrets might lead to opposition to our marriage. However, Tony didn't seem to be uncomfortable. He seemed genuinely pleased to be praised by Mandy, and to share about himself, I felt somewhat defeated. Sorry, I need to use the restroom for a bit. I said this to cool off and clear my head. After about 10 minutes, I felt calmer and returned only to find Tony and Mandy looking even closer and having fun. Ah, sis, welcome back. I was just reading Tony's palm, and guess what? He has a marriage line. That's great, isn't it? Mandy had touched his hand, making Tony blush a bit. I felt I couldn't sit with them any longer, and suggested we call it a night. What? We haven't even eaten yet, and it's only 8 p.m. T.D., are you feeling unwell? He was concerned about my health, but I responded coldly because I felt slighted. The atmosphere became awkward, but Mandy stepped in to suggest we wrap up for the day. Though we were supposed to go home together, Mandy said she was still hungry and decided to eat at another restaurant, so we parted ways separately. See you at home, sis? I went straight home without responding to Mandy. Lying on my bed, I reflected on my behavior today, acknowledging it wasn't great, and I drifted off to sleep. Then came the weekend of March 10th, the day to meet the parents. Tony and I tried to act normal despite the tension. In front of my parents, Tony managed to switch gears and responded well when they asked him to take good care of me. Yes, of course. He stumbled a bit in his response, which made me wish he had been more assertive, but I figured it might be due to nerves. The meeting with my parents went smoothly, and we moved on to discuss the marriage registration. Hey, Mom and Dad, can you sign the witness section? I want to submit the marriage registration today because I want our anniversary to be March 10th. I asked my parents to fill in the witness section, and we decided to go to the city hall that day. On the way there, Tony was looking down. "What's wrong? Are you still upset about the other day?" "I'm sorry. I got jealous of Mandy and ruined our dinner." I wanted us to be smiling when we submitted the marriage registration. Realizing I might be the reason for his mood, I apologized. Tony quickly reassured me. "Oh, no, sorry. I've just been dealing with some personal stuff these past few days. Sorry for worrying you." Relieved that it wasn't because of me, we were able to submit our marriage registration on our desired date. Now we're officially married. I'm so excited about our honeymoon around the world starting tomorrow. I can't believe you arranged it as a surprise, Tony. As I was getting excited, Tony's face turned pale. Concerned, I asked him what was wrong, and he suddenly knelt down. "Katie, I'm sorry." "What? What's wrong?" His sudden apology shocked me. I asked him to lift his face since we were still near the city hall and in the middle of town. To avoid attracting more attention, we moved to Tony's house to talk. Once inside, he tried to kneel again, so I stopped him and demanded an explanation. "Just apologizing won't help. What's wrong? Start by explaining." Tony asked for a moment to prepare his explanation. It seemed he needed time to explain properly. While waiting, I was left alone in his house. Feeling thirsty, I searched for a cup in the cupboard. That's when a crumpled letter peeked out from the back. I pulled it out, and the envelope bore shocking news. Frightened, I quickly put the letter back where I found it, abandoned the idea of having water, and sat down quietly. When Tony returned, the sound of the front door made my heart skip, but I tried to stay calm. "Sorry, I had to step out suddenly. I actually need to call someone here for the explanation." "You need to call someone here?" Tony emerged from behind, followed by Mandy. "Yo, big sis." "Mandy? Why Mandy?" I was completely confused, but ignoring my state, they came into the living room and started sitting next to each other. Seeing this, I began to feel a bad premonition. Then Tony and Mandy looked at each other before starting to talk to me. "Katie, I can't marry you after all. I've fallen in love with Mandy. Please, let's get a divorce." We had just submitted our marriage registration. Yet here he was, talking about divorce, and I couldn't keep up with the situation. Mandy smirked at my speechlessness and said, "Sorry, big sis. Tony likes me better than you, my plain sister." She said it with scorn. Still unable to accept it, I questioned the recent pleasantness. "Then why did you go greet my parents? What were you thinking when they were writing on our marriage registration witness section?" I couldn't forgive Tony for trampling over the feelings of both me and my parents. Moreover, Tony was trying to marry me while keeping secrets. It seemed like Mandy didn't know about it. When I confronted Tony, his attitude changed dramatically. "It can't be helped. You never asked me anything, Katie, and decided everything on your own. And all you ever did was complain about work, which wasn't fun at all. But Mandy," she looked at me with sparkly eyes, really interested in what I had to say. "I thought I'd rather marry someone younger, cuter, and more charming." Tony made it sound like it was all my fault. True, I did most of the talking, but he had always listened with a smile. I wanted to retort, but I was so close to tears that I could only bite my lip to hold them back. Seeing me like this, Mandy had a triumphant look on her face. "I'm sorry to your parents, but I realized I wanted to marry Mandy after we submitted the form at the city hall." Why? At the city hall, I had been on top of the world. To learn that Tony hadn't felt the same was deeply saddening. But the reason came out, and it was because of something Mandy said. It's because you realized we couldn't meet up, just the two of us, anymore, right? What do you mean? It turned out Tony and Mandy had been going out for drinks without me knowing. Mandy thought they could continue to do so even after he married me, but she had set things up. I told him, if you marry my sister, we won't meet again. Then he immediately screamed, no, and started crying. That's when he realized he loved me more than you, right? Tony didn't look at me but nodded vigorously toward Mandy. At first I thought it was just a momentary lapse, but at the submission I thought about how this piece of paper would stop me from seeing Mandy. That's when I really decided I wanted a divorce. Tony continued with his terrible excuses. As I listened, I gradually stopped caring. Whatever. What? You realize you have no chance against me? You've always been understanding, big sis, she said, mocking me. But I felt no frustration, just a cold detachment as I looked at them. Huh, sis, so frustrated you can't even cry? Well, it's sad to divorce on day one of marriage, but being a CEO's wife was too much for you, huh? I think it suits me better, and it's for the best. I think Mandy loved the title of CEO's wife more than Tony himself. Considering this, Mandy seemed rather pitiful. I almost snorted in amusement, but held back and acted instead. Why Mandy over me? I'll divorce you, and I'll find someone better. Good luck with that. I think men will find a 30-year-old woman too much trouble to even date. But do try your best. We will be going on the honeymoon around the world you and Tony had planned. I'll bring you a souvenir. So just wait and drool. I glared at Mandy in what I believe was a convincingly heartfelt performance. Then I submitted the divorce papers and went back to my parents' house. My mother hurried over to me when I arrived. Apparently, Mandy had called to inform them that she, not I, would be marrying Tony, and that they were heading off on a worldwide honeymoon. My parents were concerned about my feelings, however, I had no time for shock or sadness as I had research to do. After scouring the internet and reporting my findings to my parents, their attitude changed. Until a few days ago, I was seen as the poor sister whose husband was stolen by her younger sibling. Now they saw Mandy as the sister who would learn a painful lesson instead of me. My parents and I laughed together. They didn't worry about Mandy, considering it's a just punishment. A year later, Mandy and Tony returned from their global trip. They seemed thoroughly entertained and happy. Ah, it was amazing. Here, a souvenir keychain for you, big sis. She handed me a cheap keychain, likely bought in an American airport. Annoyed, I smiled, thanked her, and decided to reveal something. Thanks for the souvenir. Oh, by the way, Mandy, are you sure about your future wife? Huh? What? Tony's face went pale as I hinted at something. Didn't know? Tony's not so great at managing his businesses. He's bankrupted several companies, and there's a rumor he's nearly $500,000 in debt. And his current company is barely scraping by. Being his wife, you'll have a hard time, won't you? I chuckled softly, looking at Mandy. At that time, I had discovered a demand notice at Tony's house. It included the name of Tony's company, so I searched online and found a lot of information about his past dealings. I discovered accusations from former employees and learned about Tony's mismanagement. When I shared this with Mandy, she froze completely, and a few seconds later she began to question Tony in disbelief. What do you mean? You never mentioned this. People usually talk about these things before getting married, right? But Mandy, you never asked anything beyond the fact that I was a CEO. Besides, I'm not obligated to tell you everything. He insisted that it was Mandy's fault for being deceived. Mandy, who had been happily clinging to Tony just moments before, now completely flipped her attitude and screamed about getting a divorce. This is the worst. I'm getting a divorce too. What? Then you have to pay back half of what we spent on the honeymoon. I used the last of my money to win a lottery that paid for our trip, and it was supposed to be a 6-month trip. But because of your demands, it took a year. You owe me a substantial amount of money if you want to make this right. Tony also exploded with complaints against Mandy. Whether they divorced or not, my parents and I had nothing to do with it. My father told him to take their argument outside if they were going to continue. Eventually, after arguing all day, it was decided that Mandy would pay the travel expenses and they divorced. However, Mandy had always been a part-timer and couldn't come up with such a large amount of money immediately. She came to our parents' house seeking help but was, of course, turned away. Too bad. Unfortunately, both mom and dad are on my side. We won't let you into the house anymore and we're cutting ties with you. If you don't leave soon, I'm calling the police. Don't say that. Help your poor sister who got deceived, big sis. Mandy pleaded in a beating tone, her eyes tearful. But such tactics wouldn't work on me. You dare say that after you tried to steal my happiness? I won't talk to you ever again and I'll ignore you if you come to the house. You're on your own now. So, good luck. Bye. I said this and ended the call on the door monitor. Mandy stayed ringing the bell and sitting in front of the house for a while, but due to the neighbor's stares, she eventually felt uncomfortable and left. Since then, I've had no contact with Mandy. A mutual friend once told me that Mandy is now living in a cheap apartment with rent less than $300. She's been saving money by working part-time, but during that time, she was also courted by a new man and got deceived again. She was lured into a dubious business, claiming she could make over $1,000 a day, and was swindled by the same man who invited her to invest. She seems destined to continue leading a tragic life without learning from her mistakes. I learned from the news on TV that the company Tony managed went bankrupt. Apparently, his existing debts have ballooned to the point where he will never be able to pay them off in his lifetime. Online articles about Tony were quickly compiled, and he was a hot topic for a while, receiving lots of backlash. Now, with a bad reputation in the banking and business community, he's unlikely to manage another company. Thinking about him having to work diligently to pay off his massive debt makes me laugh at the misery. I am determined to become happier than those two, and am currently visiting a matchmaking agency. There's a man I'm interested in, and I believe he could be the one. Mandy told me that women over 30 couldn't get married, but I want to prove her wrong. Just thinking that I will definitely lead a happier life than those two fills me with joy. I am determined to be happy no matter what. Even after 40 years together, there are things that can remain unknown between a married couple. I never thought my husband would ask for a divorce on the day of his retirement. I must be really lucky. My name is Emily, and I'm 65 years old. When I was 25, I married my husband, who was my coworker at the time. And we've been together for 40 years. Our only daughter, Catherine, is 35. She got married 8 years ago, moved out, and started her own family. So now, it's just my husband and me living together. Life as an old couple continues without much change. But it's not bad to spend these trivial days together. My husband will retire soon, and I hope we can enjoy a relaxed life together in our old age. That's what I thought. My husband is somewhat traditional, but gentle and quiet. We've been married for 40 years. I believe I've played the role of a good wife, following behind my husband. I quit my job when we got married and lived frugally as a homemaker. It was normal back then, and I never felt strange about this life continuing. Following and trusting my husband felt natural to me, almost like a duty. It was because I loved him. That's why I might have noticed it. My husband was gradually changing. It was on a particular holiday that I felt a small discomfort. Oh, you're going out? Well, yeah. Where are you going so early in the morning? Do you have any plans? No, just a walk. I see. What about breakfast? It's ready. I don't need it. I'll be back late. I don't know why, but my husband hurriedly left the house. He usually spent his holidays watching movies or reading at home. Going out at 8 a.m., dressed up nicely, what was that about? But maybe he just wanted to go out alone for a change. At that time, I convinced myself of that. However, my husband started going out more frequently on holidays, coming back late at night. He left early in the morning and returned past midnight. The last bus had already left, so where was he, and what was he doing? Going out again today? It's been frequent lately. Yeah. Will you be late again? What about dinner? I don't need it. His replies were curt. Moreover, he started treating me colder each day. Hey, what's with this lousy meal? Lousy? It's your favorite meatloaf, onion soup, and French fries. Do you think this meager meal will give strength to a tired man? It's the same as always. If you want something specific, just tell me, and I'll make it. That's not the point. I want you to understand what I want to eat without me telling you. He raised his voice, which he had never done before. In a bad mood, he left to eat out alone, without touching my food. Many times, I ate alone at the dinner table, tears streaming down my cheeks. My husband's changes didn't stop there. I'll be on a business trip next week. A business trip? You've never had one before, that's sudden. Shut up. Stop nagging about my work. That's not what I meant. I just said it's unusual. What do you know about work? Enough. I'm going to bed. With that, he turned away like a child and went to the bedroom. What? He didn't have to talk to me like that. After that, my husband stopped looking me in the eyes, and our conversations dwindled. I tried to communicate by making his favorite dishes and giving him books he might like. But it didn't help. Hey, what's wrong lately? You have been a bit weird. I'm finding it painful to be with you. His words, spoken softly, pierced me sharply. The gap between us grew wider and wider. One day. Hello? Oh, Catherine, is that you? How are you? It was rare for my daughter to call me. Hey, this might sound strange, but how have things been with Dad lately? My daughter sounded serious. What are you talking about all of a sudden? Well, it's hard to say, but Tom said he saw Dad walking with a young woman. Tom is Catherine's husband. Now that I think about it, he works near my husband's office. Hey, has anything been different with Dad lately? I recalled my husband's recent behavior and felt a pang of pain. He used to be stern but never harsh or mean to me. Yet he had become a different person in the past few months. Unable to bear his actions and words any longer, I confided everything to my daughter. That's terrible. Dad is awful. You should have told me if you were troubled. I can't show my child that her parents are not getting along. What are you saying? If you keep worrying alone, you'll collapse from stress. Her words startled me. Come to think of it, I haven't been sleeping well, and my appetite has decreased. Stress was already eating away at me. Thank you, Catherine. It's okay. But Dad seems very suspicious. Should we investigate? Following Catherine's suggestion, I hired a detective agency to investigate my husband. I prayed in my heart. Please, let it be a misunderstanding. Please, let my husband not be betraying me. However, the results were clear. My husband was having an affair with a woman 30 years younger than him. He met her at a nightclub he visited with colleagues. He started dating the hostess there about 3 months ago. Around the time I began noticing his strange behavior. So that's what it was. Having an affair with a woman the same age as our daughter made my husband seem repulsive. After insulting and hurting me, he was out having fun. I can't forgive him. Betraying a wife of 40 years. More than tears, I felt a surge of anger. And so, the fuse for my retaliation was lit. First, I focused on gathering evidence before filing for divorce. If I had solid proof, he wouldn't be able to make excuses. I decided to get as much alimony as possible. That thought gave me some energy. Yes. I should divorce him quickly and enjoy my freedom alone. While working secretly with a lawyer on the divorce and alimony papers. My husband's retirement day approached. Should I at least appreciate his hard work on the day of his retirement? But a part of me couldn't genuinely wish him well. I was truly grateful for his financial support over the years. However, how could I care for a husband who betrayed his wife of 40 years? When I consulted my daughter, she said, "Why not give him the divorce papers on his retirement day? That should feel satisfying." Indeed, that might provide a good closure. Can I join the discussion? Huh? You, too? Why? Why do you think? Because I can't forgive Dad. You're not alone, Mom. Thank you, Catherine. And so, I decided to have my daughter present as we discussed divorce on his retirement day. On the day, after a brief round of farewells, my husband returned home by noon. His overly confident and fulfilled expression bothered me. "Oh, Catherine is here." "Yes." My daughter responded curtly. But my husband seemed unconcerned and spoke to me right away. "Emily, I need to talk to you." "Yes, what is it?" It had been a long time since we had a real conversation. The thought made me feel a sudden sadness. What were these 40 years for? I've found a woman I love. You're no longer needed. I'll give you $100,000, so leave this house. What? I'll give you the money. Just disappear from my life. Don't make me repeat myself. I will live here with her, a younger and better woman than you. Dad, what are you talking about? This doesn't concern you. Stay out of it. Of course it concerns me. This isn't fair. They started arguing. I sighed. Internally, I was cheering. My husband brought up the topic I was about to mention. How convenient. So, you want a divorce? Yeah, that's right. Can you explain everything in detail again? Fine. My husband then started talking about how he met his mistress, their love, and their plan to get married as soon as we divorced. With him sharing so much, it made it easier for me to proceed. After listening to everything, I said, I understand. So you admit to the affair? Calling it an affair is an exaggeration. Are you jealous, old lady? Jealousy isn't the issue. You just admitted to having a relationship with another woman while being married to me. Yes, whatever. Fine. Then I'll be claiming alimony for the affair. I presented the documents prepared by my lawyer, but my husband remained calm. I'll pay any amount. My retirement bonus is $200,000. Oh, that's impressive. Right? I served the company for over 40 years. It's only fair. No wonder he said he'd pay any amount. With $200,000, he was feeling confident. And you'll have to leave this house. What? This house is mine. What? My husband's expression turned to panic. I inherited this house from my parents. So why should I leave? Wait, It seemed he had completely forgotten that the house was in my name. How can you forget something so important? My husband was in a state of shock. Anyway, I agreed to the divorce. I was planning to ask for one myself. I placed the signed divorce papers next to the alimony documents. No, wait. Calm down. The divorce thing was a joke. A joke. Was he trying to make a bad joke? A joke. A surprise. I was trying to surprise you. My husband was sweating and trying to cover it up, but it was too late. A surprise? That's wonderful. So, will you be giving me a diamond ring or luxury cruise tickets along with a bouquet? Come on, show me now. Well, and what about the affair? Weren't you planning to live here with her? Saying, a young woman will be living here from tomorrow. You should be happy. I've never heard of such a surprise. Huh? Oh, that was a lie too. You knew that was a joke, right? We've been married for 40 years. I no longer needed to tolerate his insincere attitude. Don't underestimate me. I presented all the evidence of his affair. Photos of my husband and the woman flirting on the street. Pictures of them entering a short-stay hotel together. Images of them walking arm in arm, looking very close. The photos told the whole story. The undeniable truth was there, and my husband had no choice but to admit it. What? When did you? How could a wife of 40 years not notice your changes? My husband fell silent at my words. Did he realize the weight of those 40 years? How did you find out? We're married. Of course I noticed. I trusted you for 40 years, but you never really saw me. Saying those words, I felt a pang in my chest. I'll divorce you. So leave this house immediately. This is my home. Immediately? Yes. I'm not so kind as to let a traitor live here. Especially one who betrayed me. Wait, isn't it a bit hasty to suddenly talk about divorce? What are you talking about? You brought it up first. But I don't want to complicate things further. Will you sign it quickly? I tapped the table where the divorce papers were placed. Seeing my cold expression, my husband realized there was no turning back. With me and my daughter watching, he quietly signed the divorce papers. How could he forget the house was in my name? Maybe he's already senile? Well, it doesn't matter anymore. After that, my husband and I officially divorced. I received alimony as per the standard rate, and we divided his retirement money as marital property. I waited until his retirement day to file for divorce for this reason. With the alimony and the share of marital property, I got a significant amount of cash. After kicking my husband out, I demolished the house and sold the land. The real estate agent was happy to buy it for a good price due to its prime location. Even after deducting the demolition costs, I still had a substantial amount left. Perhaps my husband knew the value of the land, but overlooked the fact that the house and land were in my name. I changed my phone number and completely cut ties with my husband. I hope he finds a place to live at his age without a guarantor, but it's no longer my concern. However, my husband contacted our daughter. Hey, Catherine, where's your mother living now? Do you know what she's doing? Huh? Why should I tell you? Don't say that. I'm in trouble. This is what my husband said. After our divorce, when he had difficulty finding a place to live, his mistress suggested he buy an apartment. Through a real estate agent she introduced. He bought 2 rooms in an apartment at a significantly lower price. One room was for him to live in, and the other was for rental income. The agent convinced him, saying, "You'll recoup your investment in 5 years, and this room will never be vacant. The discount is only available during the campaign." He invested all his retirement money to buy them. That agent planned to scam me from the start. This area has poor security, it's far from the bus stops, the roads are narrow, and it's unpopular. The apartment is old and has high repair costs, having many vacant units. It's a poor quality property no one wants. Since the mistress introduced him to the agent, they were likely in cahoots. I have no retirement money left, and I can't sell this apartment. No one wants to buy it. He said this in a near tearful voice. Mom is living a comfortable life abroad. She probably won't come back to the States. Don't bother her anymore. She's enjoying her life now. This is your own fault, Dad. What comes around goes around. Watching you makes me realize I can't do bad things. Goodbye. Catherine then hung up the phone. You sure told him off. And you even lied about me being abroad. I had to say that. He was so selfish, and I couldn't stand it. Now he probably won't contact us again. Thank you. I feel much better. With pleasure. My daughter said as she poured coffee into my empty cup. Mom, what will you do now? I plan to live on my own, freely. Emily, why don't you come live with us? As we were talking, my daughter's husband suggested this. It's fine. Don't worry about me. Come on, Mom. He even says it would be better if you did. That's right. I don't mind at all. But I don't want to be a burden to you young couples. What are you saying? You don't need to be reserved with your family. My daughter grasped my hand firmly. I thought my tears had long since dried up, but I found them streaming down my cheeks. Thank you. You're still young, Mom. You have to enjoy the rest of your life. My second life was just beginning. The kindness of my daughter and her husband warmed my heart.